Hey, everybody, this is Brett Ingram, and this is the optYOUmize podcast, the show that helps entrepreneurs build their dream business and dream life. Today, we're talking with Tracy Beavers, award winning business and sales coach. She's helped hundreds of entrepreneurs with everything from overcoming the fear of sales to growing their brand visibility and building email lists through organic marketing strategies. She believes that building your business does not have to be a struggle. So, I'm really excited because for most entrepreneurs, it sure is a struggle and then some. So thanks a lot for joining us, Tracy. And thanks for glad to have you here. So
Yeah, thank you so much, Brett, for having me. I'm excited to be here. Yeah, being an entrepreneur is a freaking roller coaster, isn't it?
there's no doubt about that. I always think back, I don't know, I might be dating myself a little bit, but I always think back to the movie Parenthood with Steve Martin and his mother says at the one time, some people went like just like the merry-go-round. That just goes around, nothing. It's like I always prefer the roller coaster. You get more out of it. And I always think of that quote when I think of business ownership and
Uh-huh.
entrepreneurship because I talk to so many entrepreneurs and everybody is like, oh, it's a slog, it's
Yeah,
great, but it's a slog. And
right.
so I got a ton of stuff I want to ask you, but can
Sure.
we start off with your personal story? I'm curious. You
Mhm.
started in corporate America. So
Yeah,
can you share your background and how you started your career?
absolutely. Yes, corporate. I'm old enough. This is my generation where we were taught to go to high school, graduate, go to college, graduate, get the job, any job, be thankful for the job, and then you plan to stay in that job for 40 years. And then you get, this is how old I am, you get a gold watch, a pension, a retirement party, and a cake, right? That did not happen. So around 2005 is when corporate America really started shifting and giving severance packages and not being able to be as loyal to their employees. And I literally called my mom and I was like, "You didn't tell me this was going to happen. What the heck is going on?" And she's like, "I have no idea. This is the strangest thing I've ever seen." And so that was my first taste of, oh my gosh, this is not as stable as I thought it was. This is not guaranteed.
Right.
Everybody made it sound guaranteed. And my dad, interestingly enough, was an architect who worked for himself. So he was a self-employed, entrepreneur, solopreneur. And Brett, he made it look so unattractive and like such a grind. And he worked all the time. Of course, he was a workaholic and he loved it very much. But I was like, there is no way in heck I'm going to work for myself. Like, I was like, no. And then I thought, well, crap, if corporate's not stable and dad made that look awful, what's gonna happen to the rest of us? And so, anyway, fast forward through some toxic bosses, some job descriptions that did not feel like the right thing. The whole time not the whole time. And when I was first in corporate, I was in insurance, but fast forward around 2005, 5, 6, 7 ish is when I got fully into sales and marketing and business development, and growing market share, gaining portfolio share for companies. And I thought that I knew I didn't have any control over my time, right? Because it's corporate, it's 8 to 5, 1 hour lunch, you get so much PTO. If you're sick, too bad, you got to show up anyway. But I thought if I'm in sales and I have a commission structure, fabulous. I can make as much money as I want. No. It was around 2007. Is that right? No, 2000. I can't remember. Everything is blurry. The pandemic is blurry, and I have menopause brain, and I should not try to do
It's
math on a
affected
podcast.
all of us. Yeah.
So anyway, about 7 years ago, that's when it was. About 7 years ago, I was working, this was the final straw. I was working for a title insurance company in business development. I had grown them 86% the first year I was there. We were
Wow.
on track to grow another like 38% or something the second year. And the CEO had the nerve. These are not the words he said, but this is essentially what he said. "I didn't think you were going to be this successful. We're paying you too much money. I'm changing the commission structure for the sales department." And I was like, hold on. And so I was like, oh, okay, now I really don't have any control over my money. And so I thought, I can't do this anymore. And then my second thought was, well, I can't go work for myself either. It's like, oh my God. But anyway, I was in a really great women's mastermind and thankfully was in that at that time. And the women that were in there with me, they knew me very well. They knew my strengths. They could see the powerhouse I was in sales and marketing and business development better than I could. I just thought sales was easy for everybody. Having an award-winning sales career, I just thought that's no big deal. And they were like, "Oh, no, 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 that's a big deal. And you should be a coach." And I'm in Arkansas and we're a little slow on the trend. And so I looked at them and I'm like, I said, "That's a thing." And they're like, "It's a thing." And I was like, "No way." So anyhow, I just decided, I thought, I cannot quit my corporate job cold turkey because, husband, kids, all the things. So I thought I'll build alongside my corporate job. And if I hate it, I'll just shut it down and suck it up in the corporate world. And if I love it, then I can fully exit corporate. And so here I am all these years later. It took me about a year and a half to fully exit corporate and just be building this by itself. And it's been, like we talked about, whether you want to call it a merry-go-round or a roller coaster, there are days when I'm like, that's it. I'm burning it down. I'm going to go get a job. And then when I walk myself visually through writing the resume, do you know how long it's been since I've written a resume? I don't even know what it looks like anymore. I wouldn't even know what to put on it. Writing the resume, applying for the jobs, making networking phone calls to tell people I'm available, actually putting on matching clothes to drive to the interview. I'm like, no, forget it. I'll put up with this for another couple of weeks.
That's so funny. But I think there's a lot of commonality in your story with what a lot of people go through. I mean,
Mhm.
my father, that was his whole understanding as well. He got a job and he worked at an insurance company. He did it for
Yeah.
decades. He
Yes.
got the watch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
His boss was coming down to lay him off on the day of his party where he was getting his watch.
No.
His buddies found out about it, called him and said, "You cannot do this." It was 25th year anniversary. They had a party, a cake, his watch. And literally that day he was coming. So he waited 2 weeks, came down and laid him off.
Oh my
And so that was my first understanding that the idea of a job
Mhm.
and the security that it provides is an illusion. Right.
Yes.
At any
Mhm.
day, any time. And now, obviously, you fast forward decades later, and
Mhm.
we've all see that come to pass.
Yes.
Right. There's no loyalty anymore on either side.
Mm-mm.
So
Right.
for me, it isn't so much that it's bad. It's just that you have to know the rules.
Yes.
And he came up under one set of rules that got changed in the middle of the game.
Yeah.
And so now everybody knows it. I was in staffing for a couple of years out of college. And the interesting thing is when I started, and this is how fast the shift happened. When I
Mhm.
started off in staffing, if
Mhm.
somebody had less than 10 years at a company, the
Mhm.
question was, what's going on? Like, are you a job hopper? Like,
Yes.
what's the problem? By the time I was done, a few
Yeah.
years later, if you were somewhere more than 5 years, are you
Mhm.
not ambitious? Do you not get like, because people don't, the average, we had all the industry stats. The average was
Mhm.
2.6 years for people
Yeah.
to stay in a job up
Yeah.
to the age like 45. Once you got past 50, people were a little bit more stable, but
Right.
nonetheless, same idea. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, it's look, there's uncertainty no matter what. It's
Yes.
about being able to manage it and do it in a way that works for you. And I
Exactly.
think that's the challenge there. But fascinating background. So I
Thanks.
know that there are a lot of people that want to do what you did,
Yeah.
right? But
Mhm.
they worry about the security of that paycheck
Oh, for sure.
because they feel as though it's going to be there. So
For
how
sure.
could people overcome that and leave their 9 to 5 without worrying about money?
That's a great question, and it took me a little bit to figure the answer out because I was having one of those moments where I had an all or nothing mentality. I either had the job or I was quitting the job to build the business. I couldn't see anything in between that. And it finally dawned on me. I was like, "Tracy, you are a very smart person. You can figure out the pieces of a puzzle really well. Why can't you figure out this?" And I finally realized I just needed to use a step down approach. And so what I call a step down approach, meaning that I just started my online business. Well, actually, I started locally. I didn't go fully online for a couple of years, but I started with the low hanging fruit in my market of people that saw me build these companies, knew what I was capable of, and wanted to hire me to do the same for them. And so I got my feet wet with that, got some money coming in. As that started to grow, I was able to step down to a lesser corporate role, less pay, but I had that business money coming in. less stress. So that gave me a little more energy to work on my business. Then, as that grew again, I was able to step down again to a role that was remote. I could work from home. Wonderful. And a boss that I explained to her when I went to work for her. And thankfully, she's forward enough thinking that she knew me. She knew my reputation. She knew that I was a producer. And I said to her, what you're going to see on social media is Tracy Beavers business coaching. And that is my focus on what I'm building. Now, I will get my job done and I will deliver amazing results for you. But this job is not my forever. And
Hmm.
I hope that that's okay. I want to be straight up honest with her. And she said, you know what? I trust you. I know you're going to get your work done. That's absolutely fine. She had some entrepreneurial things she was pursuing too.
Yeah.
So I got really fortunate with that because she didn't care if I did my work for her from like 6 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Hmm.
and then met with my clients from like 10 to 2 and then picked back up my work for her from 2 to 5. She didn't care if I got it done at 10 o'clock at night. She just wanted it done.
Right.
And so I managed to juggle both of those things again until the business started to pick up a little bit more. Then I was able to step down once again. And finally, it was, I can't remember which year it was, but it was December of several years, about a year and a half into doing this. That title insurance company, we were backed by venture capitalists and we lost the VC funding and they closed the office.
Wow.
But by then, I had been working as a business coach. I had been saving everything that I was making in the business, being very judicious with what I spent money on for the business. There were some things I did invest in, but only things that I had to invest in, and I did it at the minimum amount. I also, the other thing I did before I started this movement coming down the pipe, coming down to different jobs, I looked at all of my bills because let's face it, there are some things we are paying for that we do not need for survival, right? And
Yeah.
so I looked at the bills I was paying for our house. Now, I did not want the kids or my husband to be disrupted. That would not have been fair. But did
Hmm.
I need to get my hair done every 5 weeks like I was? Did I need to have a new pair of running shoes as often as I was buying them? Did we need to have all of the subscriptions for streaming for the TV? You know what I mean? So I
I do.
trimmed the fat on that. And then I looked at what's my enough number to make sure that I'm making good on all the bills that I said I was going to take care of, keeping our retirement plan going, because that was very important to my husband. He said, I don't mind if you leave corporate, but my concern is that we've worked so hard
Hmm.
to reach our retirement goal that it might get derailed. I said, that's fair. And the goal of paying off the house and, paying for the kids' college and all that stuff. I said, that's absolutely fair. If I can make all this work, are you on board? He said, yes. So then that job ended and we both kind of freaked out a little bit. But I had saved up and I said to him, if I don't make another dime for 8 months, I'm okay. And he said, okay. He said, let's see where you are in 6 months. But
Right.
thankfully, I started off the year strong. January was a little slow as it always is, but by February, I was making. I think that's when my income skyrocketed. I think that was a $10,000 month for me. But the cool thing, what the surprising byproduct that I wasn't expecting, was when that job ended, and I had that off my shoulders, and I had that out of my head. I could be way more intentional about this business
Hmm.
and creative and outside the box and daring in the moves that I was making. So that was something I wasn't expecting. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I also wasn't expecting to not know what the heck to do with myself every day, all day long. I was like, that was weird.
Yeah, the self-management thing is something people underestimate how
Yeah.
challenging that is,
Yeah.
especially if you're in your own space, because if it's where you live,
Yeah.
you still see all the chores that need to be done all the
Uh-huh.
time. But it's still you have to treat it like it's a job. And until you
Right.
figure that out, you end up sort of not really you're it's more of a hobby. And
Yes.
then once you start to realize, okay, look, yeah, there might be some dirty dishes in the sink, they're going to have to wait until 5 o'clock or
Yes.
whenever I'm done,
Right.
because the priority is to do this thing that I've got to do. And so yeah,
Hmm.
well, I mean, that's a great way to do it. I think it's really smart. I don't know that everybody follows that same path, but I do think it's a good roadmap for how to do it in a way where you at least minimize stress, right? I
Yes.
mean, again, no matter whether you're working at a company or you have another job. I mean, I had jobs when I was younger, one which was really awesome and it was going great. 2 years into it, dot-com crash, got
Oh,
laid off.
ugh,
And the company, we were a year away from IPO.
ugh,
That it happens. And so you just the only constant is change. And that's
yes,
the part of it that you have to constantly be focused on. Okay, how am I gonna make sure that I make this work? So
right.
all right. So once you got into it, now
Yeah,
for you, sales was pretty natural.
yeah,
For a lot of people, that's a fear. I mean,
exactly.
they really get nervous about the idea. I'm not a
Yeah,
salesperson. I can't really sell.
right.
So if somebody is considering trying to do this, how
Mhm.
can they overcome that fear of sales?
It's a great question. I get this a lot. The very best way to overcome the fear of sales, the fear of coming across as salesy, especially for women, we have this fear of coming across as overly assertive. The things that we're told not to be as young ladies. Don't be loud, don't be the biggest voice in the room, don't be assertive, don't all this stuff. So the best way I know how to do this is to completely forget the word sales. Take the word sales, sale, transaction, money out of your head. Just completely set it aside. Sales is all about being a warm, kind human being, standing in front of or DMing or texting or emailing or calling another warm, kind human being. There is a human being at the other end of that interaction. And that person feels the same way about life that you do. You have way more in common than you think. And you don't want to come across as salesy. They don't want to be sold to, right? So you have that in common. People want to buy all day long, but they do not want to be sold to. So what we need to do
Uh-oh.
is approach sales from a standpoint of service. I was successful in sales because all I did was meet you, Brett, for coffee or lunch or at the chamber meeting or wherever. Brett, how's it going? Oh my gosh, tell me about your business. And we get into conversation. Now, if what I have to offer is the best thing that you could ever have and will propel you toward your goal, I'm going to offer it to you, but I'm going to do it in a way that's like, okay, you just said you're looking for XYZ. Did you know that I offer PDQ to solve XYZ? Would you like to talk about that a little bit more? And you're like, oh, maybe I would. But it gives you the opportunity to say yes or no. And all I've done is uncover your needs to see if I'm a good fit. If I am, I'm going to tell you what I got. Hey, I got a truckload of cookies. You want looking for cookies? I got chocolate chip, you know, but, um, but if what I have is not, if I've got chocolate chip and you're looking for rum raisin, what I could do is say, you know what? I don't have that. But my friend Carrie that I work with, she's got a truckload of rum raisin. I'm going to give you her number and you're going to go get all the cookies you can possibly eat in a day. And you know what? You're going to walk away from that. I have not made a sale, right? People are like, "Well, that doesn't give you a sale." But who's going to remember Tracy Beavers for being kind,
Yeah.
putting your needs before mine? And when you're looking for chocolate chip or your best friend is, who are you going to think of?
Hmm.
I mean, when I was in mortgage lending, that was 100% commission. That was stressful. And it
Oh
was during
wow.
the refinance boom where all the media was saying is refinance, refinance, refinance. And I had people on a revolving door coming through my office saying, I heard on the Today Show, I need to refinance my house. And I'd say, okay, cool, let's sit down and look at it. 80% of the time, it didn't make any sense for them to refinance their house based on their financial goal.
Yeah.
And I have to sleep at night. So I took the
Hmm.
sale out of the equation and I said, Brett, this is why you do not need to refinance. Here it is on paper. Now, could you go down the street and convince a mortgage lender down the street to refinance your home all day long? Because there
Yeah.
are mortgage lenders that couldn't care less about your financial goal. They wanted to make money. But what I did there was I put your needs in front of mine and it worked all the time. You would come back to me. Oh my gosh, Tracy, we've decided to sell our house. We're going to buy a new one. I need you to finance me because you were so honest with me and thorough in taking my needs into consideration. Or when you run into a friend that says, I think I need to refinance my house, and you're like, hold on, wait a minute. Don't follow what the Today Show says. Go talk to Tracy because she's going to shoot you straight. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I'll tell you, I think the mistake people make is along the lines of thinking about sales, they think of transactionally.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's the
yeah,
reason that it doesn't work,
yeah,
because if your whole focus is on, I've got to get this transaction, it's like a tug of war.
yeah,
They also know you're trying to get the transaction.
yeah.
And so it becomes this thing where they're pulling back, you're pulling forward, you're
Mhm.
trying to get everybody. And even if you make the sale in those circumstances, you don't feel too good about it after, because
No.
you sort of feel like you almost strong armed them in it,
Mhm,
or maybe they just were afraid to say no, but
mhm.
they didn't really want it. And so
Yeah.
um, you want people to be able to come out the other end of a transaction feeling good about it,
Yes.
and feeling good about themselves for having done it, in
Yes.
addition to feeling good about you too. And so I think
Mhm.
it's a really strong lesson there for everybody to understand that, if you stop focusing on the transaction element of it and
Yes.
just get into, look, it's relationships,
It's a
right? That's what
conversation.
makes life go around. And
Mhm.
so I always say, because it fascinates me, in this digital age, we have all this technology, we're so connected,
Yeah.
but there's such a lack of focus on real relationships.
Yes.
And so when you have an opportunity to build those, I think it's super important. So
Yeah.
um, speaking of which, I want to ask you a little bit about building a subscriber list, because I know the conventional wisdom is to build a subscriber list, you create a lead magnet, right? It's like a
Right.
freebie
Right.
that you're going to give away that gives a little bit of information and entices somebody to give an email address.
Yeah.
But while that's the typical way to do it, is there a way to grow it without that?
Oh, yes. I'm so glad you asked, Brett, and I could talk about this. We're gonna be here for 5 hours. Are you okay? Buckle up.
I am.
Buckle up, listeners. No, I can get on a soapbox about this though. So, we know the importance of the email list because we do not own social media. So we've got to pull our audience offline
Mhm.
onto a list that we can control. The TikTok thing that's been happening lately, prime example. I pray those people were building an email list because holy cow, they were about to
Yeah.
lose lots and lots of money. So the list is really important. It's a way for us to deepen the know, like, and trust factor, literally landing in what I like to call the living room of that person. The inbox to me is like a living room. You're landing in their house. And so to get them onto the list, though, those lead magnets are important. That is foundational. We've got to identify our ideal client, figure out what do they need, what can I give them, make a free lead magnet, preferably 2 or 3 that pertain to your paid offer, put those out on social, promote them, let people see them, use them as your call to action. But other than that, I have over 10 strategies that I developed all by myself that have nothing to do with paid ads or more lead magnets. And so one of them is a very quiet strategy that people don't even realize. And I want to talk about the Facebook personal profile. Facebook is my jam. It's the platform that I teach, still the number one social media platform in the world, regardless of whether we like it or not. It's a massive marketing tool for our businesses. So I need to set aside my like or dislike for it and use it to build a business and use it to reach my clients. So, Facebook personal profile. When you go to meet somebody, whether it's in person or you're on a virtual networking Zoom session, they're going to go check you out on social media.
Mhm.
Facebook is a place where people go to check other people out on social media. When I land on somebody's Facebook personal profile and there may not even be a picture of them. It might not be even their full name. There's in the about section it says no workplaces to show. I can't tell what kind of business they have. Massive disconnect from my brain. Massive. I'm like, okay, this person is either doing this business as a hobby or they're not the expert they said they were. I'm not impressed. I'm not going to solve the mystery of who they are. I'm going to move on. What we want to do is we want to dial in that Facebook personal profile, taking advantage of every nook and cranny Facebook gives us. The photo, your full name, the intro section that says who you serve, how you serve them, and that very strong marketing statement there. All the links of you, the entire menu, because we've got to give people the option to follow us where they want to follow us. They find you
Mhm.
on Facebook, but they love Instagram. You got to have that Instagram link there, your LinkedIn link, your Pinterest, your podcast, your free Facebook group, all the stuff. Make it easy for people to find you and connect with you. The list growth happens, and this is the thing people don't know about a lot, is on the cover photo. I want you to showcase something that leads to your list growth on your cover photo. For me, it's my free Facebook group. The Be a Confident Entrepreneur group has over 3,500 online entrepreneurs in it. People can promote themselves anytime. They're encouraged to network. It's an amazing community. And I teach list growth. So when you land on my personal profile and you see my cover photo that says, I'm going to teach you list growth and how to attract your ideal clients, and then you click on my cover photo to get more information, in the description box that opens up to the right is where I can tell you what's in it for you to join my group and give you the actual hyperlink linking to my group. Because you can put the hyperlink in the about section, in the contact section, but on the cover photo, you could put the link, but it's not an actual hot link because it's just a graphic. But a lot of people don't know you can click on the cover photos. So that's why you'll see on my cover photos, there's always a click here directive or a join
Interesting.
here. Yeah. And so 90% of the people that join, I have hundreds of people that join my group every single month. 90% of them I haven't even met. But because I'm virtually networking, because I'm a guest on a podcast, because I'm meeting people in person and they're going to look me up. Also, I teach how to be visible and active in Facebook groups where your ideal clients hang out, even the ones that don't allow promotion. People click on my personal profile because I'm in there being of service. I'm being my normal self, which is kind, sharing my expertise, not promoting anything. And people are like, who is this Tracy Beavers person? They click on my personal profile, they go there, they slide right down my list growth funnel.
That's very cool.
Thanks.
I didn't know that. I haven't used that. I focus more on my page
Yeah.
than on my
You
profile.
can
And
do it on your
so
business page too. Facebook personal profile and business page, you can use the same cover photo, the same description box language. Yep.
very cool.
Very same.
Thanks.
And
Thanks
if
for the tip.
you're welcome. If you're on Instagram or you're on LinkedIn, or let's say you're on Mighty Networks, Circle, Heartbeat, wherever you are given a place to have a social profile that says who you are, who you serve, how you serve them, get a link in there for your list growth. Something in there that people want to have. That's why we have to have lead magnets. If I didn't have a free Facebook group, I'd probably be showcasing one of my free lead magnets.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, obviously, there has to be that sort of exchange of value where they reckon it because nobody's looking for more stuff to sign up for nothing.
Right.
Nobody's looking for more emails or more of this or more of that unless they value it first. And then they say, okay, yes, now I want that.
Yeah.
So in terms of exposure, right? Everybody's looking for visibility. It's hard. It's crowded out there. It's super. There's information everywhere. There's all these ideas and stuff like that. Most people that I talk to that think about digital marketing, the first thing that comes to mind for them is running ads
Mm-hmm.
because it's low hanging fruit, right? You exchange money for clicks. You could start clicks rolling in this afternoon if you really want
Right.
to.
Yeah.
Most likely you're going to lose your shirt, but you could do it.
Yeah.
Are there other ways to grow your exposure other than paid ads?
Absolutely. We're doing it right now with this collaboration. Yep. As a podcast host, I help podcasters grow their lists. I spoke to a podcast conference last November, and it was all about list growth and strategies to grow it. And what's funny is I told them, I said, this is not the sexiest topic you've heard, but when I get done telling you all about list growth and how you can do it, I think you're going to change your mind. And when they realized that as podcasters, they could increase their downloads and things like that with a list, they were on board. But as podcasters, one of the great things to do is as a host, and you would be amazed at how many podcasters I meet that aren't doing, they just miss the boat on this. In the audio of the podcast, give people a call to action that leads to your email list. Because my free Facebook group, because of the way we have the membership entry questions set up, people want to give me their email address to come into my group. So I'll mention that as a podcast host, and then I'll put it in the show notes. As a podcast guest, I want everybody to be prepared. Don't be like me. Oh my gosh, the first couple of podcasts I was on, I was so nervous and I was not expecting the host to say, where can everybody find you to connect with you?
Yeah.
And what did I say? I said, oh, my website's great, tracybeavers.com. No, 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 no. Don't send them to your Instagram profile. Don't send them to your website. Send them to someplace that immediately grows your list. A really cool freebie, your free Facebook group. I'll give my podcast now because of the way I have my podcast designed. I know that when you listen to my podcast, you're going to get on my list somehow because I'm offering you a free something that's really cool or a spot in my free group or, what have you. So yeah, podcasting is a great way to do it. Asking your network for speaking opportunities to speak in front, be a guest expert, either on a podcast or in a summit, to a group coaching program, to a mastermind. I'm booked as a speaker on a cruise ship this fall, so
Cool.
that's going to grow my email list. And then, one of the things I teach is social media, because just like you're saying, the online space is loud. It's
Mhm.
crowded. We can feel like our audience is never going to hear us or see us. And what I teach is we really can't worry about the result. What we have to worry about or concern ourselves with is creating enough content to be consistent week in, week out, with the right messaging and calls to action that lead to our list. Whether or not people like, heart, follow, comment, whatever, I don't care if they're liking and hearting and commenting. I care if they're landing on my list. And so a lot of times it'll translate into list growth before it'll translate into social media analytics that look really cool. Because you can have one of my clients last summer hired me to help her, 800,000 followers on Instagram. She was making no money.
Yeah.
She had no list. She had no calls to action to a list. She didn't have an offer. She did not understand the whole sales process. And probably 50% of those people were just voyeurs,
Yeah.
not even her ideal clients.
Well, that's the other issue. I mean, followers don't necessarily equal that much influence. I mean, I've seen people that have really big followings and it looks impressive, but if they post things, there's no engagement. You're
Exactly.
better off to have 300 followers that engage with everything you post.
Yep.
That's the reason, by the way, for me. I mean, I love the platform of podcasting, because instead of it being everything superficial, we
Yeah.
can have a real discussion.
Yeah.
It's we're in the coffee shop together, chatting,
Yeah.
and I love that because I learn something every single day that I get an opportunity to talk to somebody and build relationships. And I just think create value for other
Mhm.
people who listen, so they don't have to do the work to
Yeah.
get the result. And I
Yeah.
think that is awesome. But
Me
yeah,
too.
I think that's super important to have sort of a call to action in mind and have a way where you're always driving people
Mhm.
into your funnels, essentially,
Mhm.
because ultimately any of the other public things like the social media platforms, you don't own those.
Mm-mm.
So they not only can TikTok get banned, but I
Mhm.
know people that have had their channels or pages shut down.
Yes.
And it's basically you get a message that says goodbye,
Yeah.
and you can then try to appeal it. And sometimes
Right.
it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
And if that happens and that was your following,
Yeah.
now what do you do?
I know.
So I'm
Yeah.
with you there.
And I would also rather have an email list of 300 people that are warm to me, that are engaged in my content, than an email list of 10,000 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had that too. I in my early days in digital marketing, I had actually some massive lists because we were doing software and things like that. And I didn't, I used it transactionally. I'll be honest. I wasn't
Mhm.
building good relationships.
Yeah.
And so you would think with a list of 100,000 people that were all, by the way, customers from these products that you
Mhm.
would think at that point that you would be able to just click send and money would flow in. And the funny thing is, like it did to some extent, but not to the degree it should have for a list that size.
Right.
You know what I mean? I've had lists way smaller that were far more engaged and ultimately far more profitable because there was a relationship there. So when I
Absolutely.
recommend something, they would or I offer something, they would want to go get it. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's key. So let's talk about direct messaging a little bit, because this is another thing. Look, I every day, and I'm not huge on social media, but every
Mhm.
day I get flooded with these things, but
Mhm.
vast majority of them are blatant sales pitches. I mean, you can smell
Mhm.
it before you even open it that this thing is somebody trying to sell me something.
Mhm.
So is there a right way to DM where you can do it in a way that you can get results from it?
Absolutely. The best way is after you've made a connection in some fashion. So, for example, when people join my free Facebook group, I send them a friend request, and I send everybody a welcome DM, because I want it as a community, and I want them to feel that when they come into my community. And that's a very easy way to start the conversation. If you've met somebody in person, ask to connect with them on social. Say, hey, Brett, where do I find you on Facebook? And then you send them a DM that says, oh my gosh, it was so great to be on your podcast. Thank you so much. That's another great way to do it. Now, if it's a cold situation, that's a little more difficult, truly, because it's cold and you do run the risk of them thinking that you're a spammer. But what I found is, um, if you're on LinkedIn and you see that somebody you went to the same university you did, and you want to connect with that person, I would be absolutely honest in the DMs and I would say, "Hey Brett, I see we both went to Tulsa University. I graduated in 1992. Would love to talk about when you were there and how was your experience? I also see that we both do I help entrepreneurs do X so they can Y. I see that you kind of do the same thing. Would also love to open up a conversation about a potential collaboration." And that's just being honest. And then giving
Yeah.
that other, but I would not, the thing that breaks my heart more than anything is when somebody comes into my DMs and just straight up pitches me. And I'm
Yeah.
like, they'll say, this is what cracks me up. They haven't even looked at my LinkedIn profile and they'll say something about, we help businesses of $2 million in revenue or more get funding for blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's not my company. Sorry, dude.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you got the
Yeah.
wrong person.
No, exactly. They're just going with the shotgun approach and hoping that
Exactly.
they get enough hits and things like that.
Yeah.
So
You
in
want to have
general,
you want to have some sort of connector to reach out to him just so it doesn't feel weird, you know?
yeah, I like that too. I mean, like you said, I mean, even if it's something simple, if you want to try to get to know somebody
Mhm.
and there's no connection there, try to find something where it's just a conversation starter. There's nothing inside of it that's inherently a pitch
Mhm.
or a veiled even attempt at it. It's literally just an attempt to connect.
Mhm.
Then you can take it beyond that if they
Yeah.
respond and you have
Mhm.
a dialogue going.
Right.
And that's always the way I've approached it as well. I think, I mean, I don't do it on social media, but just as a general rule, I've coached a lot of business owners, and that's one of the things that I would always recommend, because I just think that um, you they feel like there's this access to all of it, and that's great that there's a
Mhm.
huge number of people out there, but there are a lot of people in your neighborhood. It doesn't mean that they're all going to be prospects for
Yeah.
whatever it is you're selling,
Yeah.
and so that's the thing that you have to consider. So conventional wisdom says that building a business is hard, right? I talk with entrepreneurs every day. We sort of laughed about this in the beginning, and they all say to me, "Oh, there were days where I was ready to, give me a job, just like get me out of here, whatever." And then there are days where I'm like, "Oh, this is the best. I'm so glad that I'm an entrepreneur today." Um,
Yep.
so, and by the way, people that have said even the part about it being terrifying,
Mhm.
some of them are crushing it. So it
Yeah.
isn't like they're struggling right now,
Yeah.
but it's still palpable for them. They
Yeah.
they can still feel those days, and they know that you don't know what's around the next corner.
Right.
So you have a different take, that building a business can be, without the struggle, can be more
Mhm.
fun and
Yeah.
easy than that. Can you share
Yeah.
with us what your secret is?
Yeah, so I try not to overcomplicate anything, right? It's like my bless my clients and students. Sometimes they are just trying to make things too perfect. The perfect lead magnet with the perfect cover photo, the perfect wording, the perfect email, the perfect offer. No, let's create the thing. Let's throw the thing out there. See who bites on it, who likes it, who doesn't. If we need to, we'll reel the thing back in. We'll make some adjustments. We'll throw it back out there and we'll see what happens. But they get stuck trying to make the best decision right out of the gate. And what I want them to understand is that wherever you start is not where you're going to end up. It's true for big people in the space. Amy Porterfield is a prime example. She started out running people's ads for them,
Mhm.
and that now she teaches course creation. Right?
Right? Yeah.
Total evolution. If you watch her 16 years, I'm the same way. I started general business and sales coach because I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do exactly. I mean, I talk about not niching down, and you can't get more general than that. And and I was helping people at the local level, but I got started and
Mhm.
I figured it out. And now I've evolved into I help online entrepreneurs across the globe. I don't help people my local area anymore. And I focus on visibility and list growth as a business and sales coach. So I think they just, and they feel like things have to have fireworks and sparklers attached to it to get people's attention or to get anybody to buy their thing or sign up with them or no. It just has to be the right meaningful messaging to grab your audience's attention and bring them in to your world.
I think that's great advice and really powerful, because done is better than perfect.
Yes.
The reality is, even when you create something and even when you think it's perfect, that doesn't mean it's going to work.
Yes.
And so oftentimes you're going to have to build the plane while you're flying anyway.
Exactly.
So you might as well get it up in the air and then start putting on the right parts and pieces, as opposed to trying to put it all together to find out, and it doesn't work anyway. So I've gone through that 100 times. And I'll tell you something funny about that, even in sort of a micro example of it, even with headlines. I've been writing a headline for a sales page that I was creating. And I'll say, well, I've got to split test this. So I'll create 5 different versions. So the first couple I work really hard at. Oh, these are going to be really good. And the last couple are throwaways. They're just ideas. I'm like, I'll throw that in there. I can't tell you the number of times that one of the throwaways outperformed the one that I thought was great. Yes. And so I tell people, even when you're getting advice from a coach, right? Like I'll coach entrepreneurs. Even when you're getting advice from me, yes, I have a lot of information. I have a lot of experience. I have a lot of knowledge. I've learned from a lot of other people. Right. Does that mean that I can give you step-by-step details and everything I tell you is going to work No. I can give you the process, and I can tell you the mindset you need to have to be adaptable, to understand that you look at results you get, then you make adjustments. You look at what's working, you look at what's not, and and so on. And so I think it's really good advice. But what you said is so true, because people feel as though it's like Field of Dreams. If you build it, they'll come. If you get a funnel online, all of a sudden it's going to sell.
Yeah.
Well, no. I mean, it doesn't always work that way.
Right.
You can get lucky, but most often you have to make those adjustments and get to where you're going. And when you look at gigantic companies that are really successful, I mean, for Canva, it took her 2 years to get anybody to even be interested.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Now it's like the number one design platform in the world, So no takers for 2 years, and it's like, okay. I think that's super important, and the persistence side of it. If you commit to getting it done instead of giving it a try, there's a big difference between that.
Exactly.
If your mentality is in the right place. And so I think that's great. All right. So where can people find you, find your products, find your services? You knew I was going to ask that because you've been doing this enough now.
Yeah. I'm ready now, Brett. I'm ready now.
Awesome.
So I love my podcast. It's called Create Online Business Success. It does lead to my email list. You're going to get calls to action to join my free group. My free group on Facebook is another great way to connect with me. I literally will DM you to welcome you and ask you what you need. And if there's a free resource I have that would be great fit for you, I'm going to give it to you all day long. The free group is called Be a Confident Entrepreneur. Get visible, grow your email list and your income. And the only thing I ask is that they answer the membership entry questions, because we've had a lot of weird bot accounts try to join the group. And I'm like, oh, no. I need to know that you're a legit human being and that you are actually an entrepreneur, and what one of your goals is before I'm going to let you come into my world. But that'd be a great place to connect with me.
Awesome. Thanks for that. All right. I have one last question I have to ask, because I'm always curious to know what everyone's going to say. What's your number one tip for success as a business owner or an entrepreneur?
Patience and consistency.
I
call them the Wonder Twins of business success. And neither of them are fun or sexy. Not at all. No.
But when you put them together, Wonder Twins activate, right?
Yep.
So that's the key thing. And exactly. I couldn't agree more. I've taken enough lumps to know that you learn those lessons the hard way if you just don't give up at some point, right? So. All right, that's awesome. Thanks so much. It's just about time to wrap things up. I want to thank you so much again, Tracy, for sharing all your insights and great tips with us. You can find her Apple Podcasts. Her podcast is called Create Online Business Success. You can subscribe to her show there. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And as always, remember, no matter what you want for your business or your life, don't compromise, optYOUmize.